Welcome back to the American Superbike Show. I'm your host, Itch Turner, and thank you to everyone out there who has liked or subscribed or however it is on the podcasting platform of your choice. I also appreciate all the 5-star reviews and just helping all of this continues to help this show grow, and it has been just growing at an exponential rate every month. So I'm very thankful for everyone to helping make that happen and excited to keep that going throughout the rest of the year. Now, this week we are going to have another shortish show. I'm not going to really talk about MotoGP or Moto2. Frankly, I just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to keep up with everything like around the world. And that's one of the reasons why I dedicate this show to MotoAmerica, because currently at only 10 weekends a year, I hope it stretches out to more like 12, to 13-ish weekends a year. But like that is a much more manageable schedule to be able to keep up with and just like be able to follow and pour myself into. And so that's, here we are. So Talent Cup, they opened up their season. It's always nice to have the first Talent Cup broadcast of the year so that I can finally learn from Greg White how badly I've been mispronouncing some of the names of the new riders that are entering the series. One in particular, Nathan Gauker. Boy, I screwed his name up beforehand, and he went out there and had himself a weekend to try and make sure that I don't do that again. On the whole, the kids are all right. There was 2 fantastic races this weekend. We had a 4-way battle at the front for both of them. I think in both races, like the top 4 managed to cross the finish line in less than a second. In these 2 races, we did have those, for those front 4 guys that managed to check out and walk away from everyone else. I wouldn't quite discount everyone else just yet. I mean, that group of 4 at the front isn't very far from becoming like 5 or 6, especially when you see a rider like Rossi Garcia, who made such tremendous progress throughout the week in improving his lap times and getting closer and closer to the front. And there's also riders out there like Derek Sanchez King, who's Nikki Hayden Horizon Award winner. Like, just because this weekend was dominated by these 4 riders, I don't think that all weekends are going to be dominated by these 4 riders. But yeah, even still, with just the 4 at the front, it was such fantastic racing. Like all 4 of them were just continued to take shot after shot after shot at each other. And it was just, man, it was so fun to watch. You could still see, especially on Gauker's bike, whenever, through that long quad apex right-hander that's, that leads into turn 19. So I guess it would be like 16 through 17 or 18, whatever the turn numbers may be. And there was times through there where he would be going at a good lead angle, and you could tell when he started to push just a little bit too hard, that chatter would start coming back again. You can see the bike just kind of hopping around going through the corner. So you can see that the Kramers do still have a little bit of that issue. And I think it's really just because those bikes probably have way too much grip for their own good. With the tire it's able to get enough of the tire effectively on the track, and especially on a track like Circuit of the Americas, where that pavement usually is in pretty good condition and has a lot of grip, and just applying all that traction through the surface of the track in a wheelbase that's so short while they're going at a lean angle, that's gotta and from what I hear, this chassis is pretty stiff as well, so it doesn't really give a lot of bend and flexion to kind of absorb some of that. So that's where you end up, where they start pushing really hard at those lean angles. You start seeing the front end, especially the front and the back end, sometimes will start just bouncing around a little bit on the track. And you can always tell, for me, the best way to see it is just looking at the tail section. You can see just that little bit of the tip of the tail section just kind of just starts vibrating around like a tuning fork. But you can still see that somewhat, that it started to rear its head a little bit throughout a couple of the races, or through the races a couple times. You can kind of see it at points. But unlike last year, where it really seemed like just riding around the track would make the bike like chatter like a jackhammer, this year you could at least see it seemed a lot more controlled, and it only really started to show its head when riders started to approach and kind of sometimes exceed the limit of what the grip they had available. So let's see here. In qualifying, Nathan Gallagher took pole at his first Talent Cup race, and so good job on him. Kenzie Matsudaira was P2, Sam Drain qualified P3, and Jake Page qualified P4. And that was our four riders that pretty much controlled the weekend from the front. When we came to race one, Nathan Gallagher was on a mission. He wanted to lead from the front from the start, it looked like, and he went out there, did everything he could to make that happen. And, especially, when I was talking about that chatter and doing everything he could, there was a lot of those points where somebody would pass him, and so you would see that he would be committed to just mentally in his mind that in that next corner, I'm going to take the lead back. And in doing so, you would start to see that bike just vibrate and bounce around as it was going through the corners in those instances. But see here, in race one, Nathan Gallagher managed to take the win. Kenzie Matsudaira finished P2, Jake Page finished P3, and Sam Drain finished P4. Race two, well, Kenzie Matsudaira was able to get his first MotoAmerica victory and only his third complete race. And all three of the races that he's finished so far have all been on the podium. So that's a pretty impressive signal from the young man from California. But see here, Matsudaira got the win in race two, and Nathan Gallagher finished P2. And with Sam Drain finishing P3 and Jake Page finishing P4, you could tell that Jake Page was visibly upset as he crossed the finish line, because in that final turn 20, like, he's just right out there on the edge and lost the rear a little bit, and it kind of had to let up to avoid a high side and keep it within the track limits. And just, that was just, that was just enough of he had to let off just enough. God, if I can get words out to let Sam Drain by on the inside right before the finish line. So that was the two races on the weekend. Now, behind those four at the front for both of the races, you had Rossi Garcia. He finished P5, and that was after qualifying in 11th place for the weekend. So finishing P5 with both the races after qualifying 11th, that was enough to make Rossi Garcia the biggest mover of the weekend, gaining 12 spots overall. And while Rossi Garcia led the way by gaining 12 spots on the weekend, the next closest person after that was Bandit Landers and Colton Schaefer. They each managed to pick up just 3 spots over the weekend. So congratulations to Rossi Garcia on being the biggest mover. Now, points as we leave this round and head to Road Atlanta. Well, no surprise. Nathan Gallagher and Kenzie Matsudaira, they're tied for first place. They each got a win, and they each got a second place on the weekend. So therefore, they are tied. And tied for third place is Jake Page and Sam Drain. Let's try and say this correctly. They are tied for third because, well, just like the first two, they each got a third place and they each got a fourth place on the weekend. And Rossi Garcia is all alone in fifth place after getting 2 fifth-place finishes. So that was MotoAmerica Talent Cup. I am going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the Baggers World Cup. And just because it did, almost half the field was made up of MotoAmerica regulars. Now, I thought the Americans would have an advantage because they have had so much more time and experience on these motorcycles, not just riding them, but developing for racing. Well, shows you what I know. Eric Granado got pole, and Archie McDonald was P2 with Gutierrez in P3. The Saddleman boys were P4 through 6, and it was Jake Lewis, Travis Wyman, and Corey West in that order. In race 1, Archie McDonald managed to come away with a victory. Jake Lewis finished P2, though, so good on him. I didn't actually watch the race. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm just glad to see that, Jake Lewis was able to get up there on the podium. A bit further back behind Jake Lewis was his teammates Corey West in P4, Travis Wyman was P5, and Cody Wyman for the Joe Rascal team finished in P7. In race 2, Oscar Gutierrez was able to get P1. Jake Lewis finished in P4 for that race, while Corey West came home P6. Travis Wyman didn't finish and Corey Wyman wasn't able to take the start. I also did not watch race 2, so I'm not sure why the Wymans were not, what happened to either of the Wymans in that race. The biggest mover of the weekend was Filippo Rovelli. He managed to gain 10 spots over the 2 races, and Jake Lewis and Corey West were the only other 2 riders that had a positive number. They both managed to pick up 2 spots over the weekend. Everyone else either didn't gain any positions at all or lost positions. So the points for the Baggers World Cup as they leave COTA, it has Archie McDonald up top with 41 points. Oscar Gutierrez is in second place with 33. He's tied with Jake Lewis for second place, who also has 33. Corey West is sitting P6 in the points with 23 points, and Travis Wyman is P7 with 11 points after his only being able to finish the 1 race, and Cody Wyman similarly is P8 with only 9 points. So that is it for this week's episode. I know I said it was going to be a shortish one again. Next week, I'm not really anticipating a whole lot of news or information come out for next week, so I'm going to have just a nice little special bonus episode that I've already gotten queued up and ready to go. And then after that, we're going to be previewing Road Atlanta. So I'm so looking forward to going to Atlanta. I've never been to the track. It might be my favorite track in the United States. I say might because Road America is also up there as well. And I've never actually been to either one of those 2. So I got to get to both of them still. But I love their layout. I love just how it contributes to just really great action on track. So I'm really looking forward to getting to those 2. And especially in at Atlanta, I'm really excited just to be able to see the hills in person and get a much better idea on just the sheer changes in elevation, because you always hear on that TV doesn't do it justice. Well, I'm really excited to go and finally figure that out for myself in person. So that's it for this week's show. Just remember, until next time, just try and take care of each other.